Hey guys, and what's going on? Tyrauku here, and today I want to talk about my biggest mistake in Raid. So a few days ago, I was on the Saffron Man's podcast on twitch.tv/the Saffron Man, and I'll leave a link down to that below if you guys want to check out his podcast, his channel, or anything like that. But one of the questions he asked me was what was my biggest mistake in Raid, and during the podcast, it was my first time being on one, so I didn't elaborate very much on it. I kind of just gave the answer. I guess I was nervous or something, but either way, I wanted to share with you guys what my biggest mistake was in Raid and kind of go over a little bit how I got into playing Raid. So leave in the comments down below what your biggest mistake was. And another thing is if you're a new player who just stumbled across this video or something like that, I want to go ahead and let you know that any mistake you make is probably not going to destroy your account. I think the only mistake that's going to destroy your account would be actually, no, not even really. I'd say selling all of your gear. That'd make it hard to progress, or feeding all your champions and deleting them essentially, but I guess you'll always have one champion left. So there's really no way to completely destroy an account, like especially if it's very early. Now, the most common thing is feeding a legendary champion, okay? Is it going to destroy your account? No, not at all. But does it feel very bad when you look back and realize, crap, I fed a champion who's really good, okay? So whether it's legendary, whether it's epic, even some rare sometimes, feeding champions is a very risky business on it, especially when you're new to the game, because there's so many people who tell me, hey, I fed my yesterday in stream, I think it was I don't think it was a Cardinal. Somebody in stream yesterday had actually fed Phoenix. Somebody in stream yesterday had fed their Phoenix, and not knowing that he was actually a really good champion, especially for faction wars. I'm going to go ahead and turn on some dragon runs just so I can talk while this is running in the background. I did fix some of the AI on my Kymar, so this is actually a fairly quicker run, especially for 25. But talking about what my biggest mistake was in Raid. So when I very first started playing, I'll get into how I actually started playing Raid a little bit later, but let's go ahead and share my mistake. All right. So I had started playing Raid, I think about 2 years ago, and I was playing for a few months. Well, I wasn't like super, I guess, drawn into Raid yet at that point, and I picked Kale as my starter, but I was going through, everything was going good. I wasn't really watching many YouTube videos. I think I was watching a few of Stu's. I don't think Hell Hades was making a whole lot back then. I think it was mostly Stu's content I was watching. I'm not for sure. But either way, I was watching a little bit of content, not very much. I didn't really know what I should and shouldn't be doing. However, I did know about a website and I knew about tier list a little bit, okay? So Ayumi Love specifically. Ayumi Love, I like the website, but one thing I want to mention is knowing how to read the information, and that even if a website says a champion's a low tier ranking, it doesn't mean to feed them, all right? It doesn't mean to get rid of those champions. And Ayumi Love will tell you, don't do that, okay? It's a terrible idea. That's just a suggestion, and the suggestions are good, but you need to make your own decisions on your account. Now, back to what actually happened to my account. So I was going through Kale, and I don't even remember why I fed this champion, but the champion I fed was Blood Gorged, okay? Now, when I fed him, he was not a very good champion at the time. He was a legendary, which, I mean, a legendary is a legendary champion, so he's going to be good somewhere, probably, sometime. There's no reason to feed him. But I think what happened was I was getting impatient. I have a tendency of doing that. And if you've been to my stream, you probably have seen that before. But I was getting impatient, and I wanted to get Kale to 6-star as soon as possible. So instead of grinding Chapter 12, Stage 3, instead of going through the missions and the challenges, I decided, hey, I just pulled my very first legendary, Blood Gorged. I went to Ayumi Love, and when I was looking through the tier list, it said he was, I think, like pretty low in the tier. And at the time, he wasn't a great champion. Not bad, but compared to the other legendaries, he was definitely on the lower end of things. So I thought, well, my first legendary, pretty bad. He's 5-star. So let's go ahead and give it to my Kale and rank him up. So I fed Blood Gorge to Kale, and at the time, like I was mentioning before, I wasn't super drawn into Raid. So my thought process was, well, screw it. I'm going to go ahead and feed this to Kale, get him to 6-star. Maybe it'll give me a little bit more fun in the game for now. And I plan on quitting anyways, so it's not going to be a big deal. Well, this is where it actually became a big deal, because I may have quit at the time. Fast forward a few weeks, possibly even months later, my dad, who I've mentioned a few times on the channel, I opened some shards for him and his account. He was playing Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. He was looking for a new game to start playing, and because it was like, I guess, costing too much money. The time requirements for that game was a little different. Looking back on that now, though, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes probably requires far less time than Raid does now. But he was looking for a new game to play. I said, all right, Dad, I'm gonna tell you a game that you'll probably start playing and you'll get addicted to it. Okay. Now, I had actually uninstalled Raid from my phone several times because I was playing it quite a bit. When I say I wasn't super drawn into it, it was kind of like a love hate relationship, I guess. I enjoyed the game, but I was trying not to get too much involved in it because a lot of the mobile games that I've came from, Clash Royale, let's say like the main other mobile game that I played, I would spend far too long playing it, and I would pull my phone out, around family, things like, it kind of gets in the way. All right, so I had deleted Raid several times from my phone. And that's when I told my dad, hey, you can start playing this game. It's a good game. A lot of people play it. You probably see ads all over the place. The most ambitious RPG of 2019, I think, is they're saying or whatever. But yeah, I told my dad to play the game. He ended up getting into it. He enjoyed it. So obviously, when you have a close friend, family member, something like that who gets into playing a game, that encourages you a little bit to get back into it. That's when I decided, hey, let's go ahead and pick the game back up. I already have an account, pretty well progressed, so I'll go ahead and pick it back up. I picked it back up, and that's when I realized, hey, that legendary that I fed, not a great idea. Well, wasn't all lost, luckily. I went through a few more shards, a few more weeks. I think I got another sacred shard. I don't know, probably from the campaign or from the daily logins. I don't know where it was from. I pulled a Molly. Super excited about that. Molly is an amazing champion. And then a few weeks later, I pulled another Blood Gorged. So I fed the first one, and I guess the game was like, hey, you made a mistake. We know. We'll go ahead and send you another one. If I was a Duchess that I had pulled, I can guarantee I would not have gotten another Duchess back. But either way, I got the Blood Gorge back. So in the end, basically this video, if you don't take anything else from it, what I want to get across, first off, is kind of how I got started into Raid. That biggest mistake that I made was feeding Blood Gorged. But there's two things. One, no matter how much like mistakes you think you make in Raid, it's probably not going to ruin your account, okay? I've seen people who sold most of their gear, who sold all the top row, so all of the weapons, helmets, and shields, thinking that flat stats were bad. And as you may or may not know, weapons always have flat attack, helmets always have flat HP, and shields always have flat defense. Well, when you're hearing sell all flat stat gear, they just go in there, they sort the filter by attack, defense, HP, they sold all that gear. So even that account wasn't ruined at the time that I'd seen it. Now, if you get rid of all your champions, it's going to feel bad having to come back, and it may be worth restarting, but it's difficult to just ruin an account, make a mistake that's going to destroy you. And you're going to look back on it and be like, crap, I can't believe I fed that champion. Luckily, I had just fed Blood Gorged. But either way, another thing, the point number 2 that I want to drive home is when it comes to champion tier list, when it comes to building your masteries, when it comes to building your teams in general, especially when it comes to feeding champions and building your masteries, 2 things that are resource intensive. So like if you build a champion you think is really good, turns out they're really bad, or if you build their masteries one way, following a guide online and you realize, hey, this is actually not how I want to do it, there's different things you need to watch out for. But especially when it comes to getting rid of champions and masteries, make sure you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, okay? So feeding champions, it's always easier to level up another champion. This is what I wish I would have told myself back then. It's always easier to level up a new champion to 4-star or 5-star than it is to pull the champion you're about to feed, assuming it's like an epic or legendary rarity, but unless you're a gigantic whale, which in that case, maybe you can feed your Legos and your epics. But either way, I highly, highly doubt that. So ultimately, double check. Even if a website says, hey, this champion is bad, low tier, like people a long time ago, I guess a year or a little bit more ago, probably would have fed Kandrafon, Mashald, those 2 champions specifically. If they would have fed them, would be regretting it so much to this day. All right, those 2 champions received major buffs and are absolutely amazing in so many different areas of the game currently. So even if a legendary is rated low on a tier list, don't feed them. Even if an epic champion is rated low, don't necessarily feed them, especially if you're earlier game. Once you start playing for a little while and you understand it better, you can kind of pick and choose, especially if you start getting enough resources from Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare, you start getting more shards. You can make those decisions a little bit better. This also relates to masteries though. Mastery builds online are great to follow, but you do want to understand why what is going where. Because if you're just blindly copying masteries, they may work, but it's a very base bottom level working possibly, because there's a lot of masteries that go specific with your team. Okay. It may not make or break things, but you do kind of want to understand. One big one that I went a long time without knowing was Helm Smasher versus Flawless Execution. So basically, my rule is if I'm over 200% crit damage before any masteries are included, then I'm probably going Helm Smasher. Okay. If I am 200% or below, then I'm probably going Flawless Execution. Now, it differs and is different in different situations. That's a lot of different words right there. But like Faceless, okay, he doesn't need defense ignore, so he doesn't need Helm Smasher. So Faceless's A3 ability ignores defense, so I'd build him with Flawless Execution, give him more crit damage, but ultimately just pay attention to your masteries. Try not to make, I'd say try not to make those mistakes, but honestly, if you're watching this video, you've probably already made a mistake of your own, which I would love to see your mistakes down in the comment section below. This is more just a chatting video. Maybe you could take something from it, but hopefully, guys, this is more just sharing my experience and less, hey, you screwed up your account. Hopefully that's not the case. But either way, hope you guys enjoy this little insight into my raid journey. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget to click one of the videos about to pop up. I'll catch you in the next one.